Good morning. I apologize, first of all, for the crazy hair. I just woke up and yeah, I didn't want to comb my hair, blow dry my hair when everyone else is still asleep. Everyone else, except my dog, is willing to wake up with me. But speaking of hair, this is a good time to discuss a interesting topic because we live in a very unusual time right now. This is 2021. We're still in the midst of a pandemic. And this is really once in a life experience for most of us. Well, at least we can hope that this is once in our lifetime because I certainly not looking forward to facing another pandemic before my life is over. So I want to talk about the interaction between um, the pandemic situation and ADHD. This is a certainly unique combination, and I think this is something that we haven't seen before, at least not in modern times. So the biggest impact of the pandemic is perhaps on students is the fact that they lost pretty much a year and a half of uh, school or in classroom learning. What's now very commonly called as remote learning, distant learning, has proven to be detrimental for people with ADHD, at least for the majority of the students. What I found that was even more interesting is that for a minority of kids, probably about 10 to 15% of students, either with ADHD or without ADHD, they actually thrived with remote learning. I was really surprised to see that because I never expected um, learning from a computer screen instead of being in the classroom is a good thing. What I found out is that those students who suffer from intense social anxiety, who are often the victims of bullying, and as you know, a lot of people suffering from ADHD are often the targets of bullying. They often thrive with the remote learning because they no longer have to deal with the in person social interaction that they have to deal with when they have to go to school physically. And that makes sense in retrospect. Also, the online learning offered a very structured and rigid environment for people who often needed additional helping organization. So they can have on a computer a list of stuff that they have to do, and they get to do it from home. And the home environment happens to be uh, distraction free, less cluttered. There aren't 30 other kids in the same room that can potentially distract them. They actually get able to get things done. So these students are certainly the exceptions. Unfortunately, we didn't see quite uh, the severe toll of remote learning on the vast majority of children. Distant learning also means that students are less likely to be engaged with the class or with the teacher. Most students with ADHD, they can't really focus on the screen because they feel less accountable. They're not in front of someone. The teacher is not going to come and ask them to do this or turn this in right now in person. So they turn the camera off. They just leave the room. They go out, do something else. They don't even participate in the lessons anymore. And so a lot of my patients during the pandemic with remote learning, they stopped taking their medicine. They stopped coming to the regular follow-up appointments with the doctors. Some of it at the very beginning of the pandemic is because we actually cancel in-person appointments, not knowing really what to expect from the pandemic. We don't know how contagious it is. We don't know how severe the infection is going to affect children. So we simply cancel in-person appointment. We try to do as many virtual appointments as possible. At one point, um, this is in April of 2020, we shifted from 95% in-person appointment to about 95% virtual appointments. So we did 95% of our office visits either by telephone or by video. So very drastic shifts within about 2 week period of time. We cancel appointments, we call people back, reschedule everything. It was a crazy time. I don't ever want to do that again. But we pivoted, and then as a result, we learned a lot from it. We know that many situations we can't do medical care effectively virtually. On the other hand, many other situations we have to, there's no replacement for the in-person interaction. For myself, I realized that the initial consultation for ADHD, where I need to establish a deep connection with the family and with the child, that's really best done in person. But with the established relationship for some of my patients I've been following for 5-6 years, a simple refill request where I need you simply to get an update on how the student is doing, have the parents weigh the child at home, and then either tell me their weight and height measurements or email me afterward if the kid is still in school. That can often save a lot of times for the parents, and the child doesn't have to miss school because of that. And occasionally there's success stories because when they're stopped taking their medicine, many of the patients realize that they no longer need the medicine because they do quite well. Sometimes when in-person learning resumes, they have to go back to taking the medicine again. But some of them realize they don't need that either. They have matured out of the need for ADHD stimulant treatments over the last 2 years. I thought that was kind of interesting. I remember when remote learning was first started, it was very abrupt. Basically, the kids are in class one day and then they're announced, Disneyland's closed. School will end, and children are not expected to come back tomorrow for class. And everyone cheered in class because they thought, wow, this is like a impromptu spring break. Except that, 2-3 weeks later, they realize, oh, this is actually not so good because they can no longer see their friends, and then staring at a computer screen for 8 hours stretch is not the funnest thing that they can do. So anyway, I think after the pandemic, we learned a lot from the experience. We know that distance learning for the majority of kids, it's not effective. We also learned that surprisingly, some children thrive with distance learning. And children learned that this fall, when they went back to school actually has a lot to offer. They learn to appreciate their teachers more in person. They learn to appreciate their peer-to-peer interaction more. And for the very first time, back to school seems like a celebratory event for kids. There's a newfound respect for what the school can offer for both the parents and teachers, as well as the students. So I hope you stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day.